All right. So thank you for welcoming me, Maria and Marley, and the rest of the CureMLD team, and for giving me the opportunity uh, to talk in a microphone that actually works. Is that here? Is this better? All right. Hopefully, people on the internet can hear me now. So I am Asmahan, and I'm going to be talking about resilience. All right. So my daughter Nora has late infantile metachromatic leukodystrophy. She was diagnosed shortly after the age of 2. She's now 8, and here in the room with me, along with the rest of her family. She has 2 wonderful sisters, a very loving dad, and me as her mom. When I'm not taking care of her or being a mom, I work at a manufacturing plant, and my job is to organize chaos, to summarize it. When we look back at our MLD journey, which started, I want to say about 7 years ago, before the diagnosis and after, as I put down what happened to us and the sequence of it, it made me think of a snake and ladder game, and that's what we've been going through. A lot of ups and downs, a lot of medical challenges, family challenges, but also a lot of good things that happened to us, both medically and the life we've lived, that have helped us propelled forward. There were very difficult time and very good time, and reflecting back on the last 7 years, I'm amazed of where we are today, and that's kind of what I want to share with you guys, how we've gone through it and how we've come to celebrate the ladders and expect the snakes, and mostly working through each teeny bit and just moving on. Our journey is by no means done. I don't know what's ahead of us. But I hopefully me and my family are prepared to face that and to celebrate what comes next for Nora and us. So resilience. Resilience is the ability to adjust or recover from a difficulty and to use it as fuel for change, for transformation. So for us in our journey, you end up meeting a lot of doctors, and there's always that question, what are your goals? Our goals initially were to cure Nora, but at some point we realized it wasn't on the table anymore. So we came up with different goals. And our goals have been, for the last 6 years, those 3. The first one is to make Nora comfortable, for her not to be in pain as much as we can possibly make it happen, for her not to be hungry. And her 2 wonderful sisters deserve happiness. They have a childhood to live. They have a life ahead of them. We wanted to offer that to them. And then finally, our goal also was to build memories as a family, to have a lot of things to cherish as well. So I have those 3 goals, and that's how we've approached the way we take care of her and the way our family life at home has transformed since. I've stolen a lot of information that's on the internet. I've done my job of adding the sources, but thank you so much for everyone who was putting those things out there, because it made creating that presentation very easy for me. Our experience with MLD, it really is through the full spectrum of all the health concerns that comes with it. It started with problems with her muscles and with learning, and then it started propagating. It took Nora about 6 months to lose all of her motor skills and her ability to talk. We've gone through scoliosis and hip dislocations, issue with sleeping. I dreaded the start of seizure. It turned out it wasn't as bad as I had imagined in my head it would be. So there was a lot more fear than the actuality of it when it manifested itself. We've having GI issues has been something that we've worked through overall, and MLD really affects everything about your being, but it affects the way you go through life, and it affects your family as well, because you have the people witness it and having to live through it alongside one that is affected by it, obviously. when I look back, taking care of Nora, I'm thinking of those circles that kind of create the onion around Nora to take care of her so that she's comfortable. So we have a family of 5, and we have 30 people involved in her care. Some of them are like way closer and we see them often, like the people who are involved in home care with us. We have 2 wonderful home nurses that joined us about a year ago. Before that, my sister was her care nurse for a few years alongside me and my husband. She has special education teacher. She has different kind of therapist, from physical all the way to musical therapy. We have 9 main doctors for the main conditions that we have to follow through with MLD. So we see them regularly at the clinic multiple times a year. And then there's also specialists that we see once in a while. Yeah, I've met an endocrinologist maybe once, maybe the sleep doctor a couple times, but they're still involved. Those are 32 people that as a caregiver, I have to talk to on behalf of my daughter, and I have to align on this with my spouse on what we want to talk to them about and kind of what we want out of it. Nora has reached now 18 different medication, which is quite a feat to try to manage and making sure you have enough of it for everything. We travel here to Chicago. We're going to be here for about a week, so I had to figure out how do I have enough of those 18 things with me, and a little more just in case there's an accident. We've also acquired 14 kind of different equipment that came with manuals or came without manuals, and we had to figure out where do we put them, when do we use them, how do we use them, how do we make sure it doesn't break. So lots of things to manage. I will do a plug-in for people that came in, and initially I was like, I already have a lot of doctors. Why should I have more doctors than what we already have? But it turns out those 3 types of doctor really helped me navigating all of this brings. So we have a complex doctor, which is a pediatric doctor, and I had a nurse before. They really helped us kind of coordinate between all those different functions. It's a lot easier for me to go to that person first, and they tell me, okay, now it's time to go see the neurologist, or it's time for a consult with the pharmacologist, and kind of coordinating all of that, because it gets very complex and sometimes you end up repeating a lot of things to different doctors. Palliative care really helped us with having tough conversation about life and life decision, how we came up with those goals, how do we live by them, what does that mean concretely. It's conversation I cherish. My spouse would run away from them as much as he can. He likes to delegate that to me. And the other great thing that the palliative team has brought to us is understanding what pain looks like, right? So for a child who's become nonverbal, pain doesn't look like what we typically see otherwise. They're not screaming, "Mommy, I'm in pain." It's us trying to figure out what she's telling us in different and more subtle ways. So understanding the language of pain, understanding what you can do about it is something that I'm very grateful the palliative team has brought to us, trying to kind of decipher what Nora was trying to tell us all along. And then finally, a year ago, we finally registered Nora in hospice care after she started needing oxygen therapy. I didn't know that for so many years, but having a nurse that comes to your home and check on your loved one for whatever the congestion of the day or the GI problem you have has been really helpful. They also made the ordering of those 18 different medication at different time really more easier than what I was trying to do before. So I know it's additional people to who you're already meeting with, but they've provided so much value in our ability to care for Nora. I would highly recommend you make sure you have somebody who can play that role in your care team. Something that really helped me when I started, I stumbled upon this this sentence: "A lack of cure should not result in a lack of care." I think it's quoted in that little article you see on the right side. It really helped me reframe how should I be approaching caring for Nora. I know I cannot cure her, but there's a lot I can do. And it doesn't mean we give up and say there's nothing you can do, go home and love her is what I was hearing a lot from doctors at the beginning of our odyssey. So as a caregiver, 3 things that we had to learn, sometimes the hard way. The first one was to educate ourselves about leukodystrophy and what it means. There's a great patient guide that's offered by the CureMLD team that really provides you an overview in layman's term. I'm a nerd, so I went to what the doctors read. So I stumbled upon those scientific articles, and I was reintroduced the language for me as to what the doctor will be caring about and some of the terminology they will be using. That was also helpful for me to learn how to describe the symptoms, right? Because so much of our interaction is us trying to describe what we think we're seeing, but also what we're not seeing because we're not looking for it. And that was a very tough learning curve, but hopefully we're in a better place. We're learning every time we meet a doctor, but becoming comfortable with describing what's happening to Nora re-unlocked our ability to find the right therapy for her. And then finally, it's 32 people. Get comfortable communicating, over-communicating, communicating the same thing over and over again became very important. We also had some lessons learned the hard way, and so I want to share a couple ones as well. Very early on, I found myself going to the doctor. We see them maybe every 3 months or every 6 months, and we're talking about what happened the last 3 days. And maybe something happened a month ago to Nora, it went away, but we couldn't figure out what it was, right? So I had to discipline myself to recenter the conversation on how the last period went. I'm a nerd, so the way I did that is I created charts. I do that at work too. So I went back to the doctor, and then I would bring my chart, and when they ask how many she's there, I would count them. Or anything big that happened, I would look for a lot of red notes and then concentrate on, this is what happened back in October that was difficult, right? And it went away, but we're worried it'd come back, or we managed it, but we're not sure what happened. That can help, especially when it's not a symptom that's acute that tells you, hey, I need to call the doctor, but it's something you're able to manage, but you don't quite know what to do with that. I've met a lot of doctors that would read apparently a textbook and then come up into the, our meeting, and they wouldn't look at Nora and where she is right now. I don't need to know where she's gonna be towards the end or the beginning. I need help right now for what she needs. So centering both myself into what she needs right now, but expecting that of doctors became very important. And that has been the way I've been able to tell, I'm gonna continue with this doctor, or it's time to find a different one, right? If you're unable to look at my daughter and center yourself on where she's at today, maybe you're not very helpful. And then finally, rehashing the same information at each visit is a telltale that the person didn't read the notes before showing up, right? I know the doctors are very busy, but we only get 60 minutes. And if I spend the first half hour just describing what is in your system, I only have 30 minutes to re-talk about what's important, right? So I hope that people do their homework before they show up in our consultation room. All right, so I mentioned resilience. So there's 5 principles that has emerged over the years we've been taking care of Nora, and those are the 5. The first one is to adapt your environment. The second one is to build a talented team. The third one is to understand the needs and prioritize. Using a support network, and then finally taking care of yourself. Those are the 5 that I found the most useful and kind of a way for me to navigate through the web and through our odyssey. The first one is adapting your environment to create stability, right? The same way that when we have a child, a baby, or you have an aging parent, you adapt your environment to be able to live with that person who has special needs. We do that with Nora as well. That meant getting a lot of different equipments and figure out which one we need, which one doesn't work. It also meant sometimes creating solutions, either as intermediary or because nothing worked. I happen to have a spouse that's very good at finding things on eBay, and very good also at cutting foam and different things to create lots of pillows so that Nora could be comfortable. It was very helpful when our medical wheelchair took 6 months to show up at our house. We needed something to put her in the interim, so we went creative in the meanwhile, and we haven't lost that habit since, and I'm very grateful for that. We have a supply closet that we keep organized, and we have everything in there. I'm a nerd, so I have min and max quantity, so I know when it's time to go order something because I'm getting to the end of what's in that box. It made it very easy for us to find the things we need and then go and help Nora instead of spending half an hour trying to find where that tube is. And then we have different type of communication tools. I talk about those 32 people. I have that little tracker that I use with my spouse and whoever is the main nurse or family member who's helping us to help us make sure that we gave her the medication at that specific hour, or like we're not giving it to her twice, for example. We have a family book in which the nurses put notes, and I write notes for what I need to tell the hospice nurse as well when they show up. And then we have a little board in which we write whatever is the most important. So right now we did a pretty big change in medication quantity, so we have it on the board so you remember that it's not 2.5 mils, it's 3 mils now. Finally, you get very tired, so it's easy to make mistakes, especially in the morning or in the evening, and you start confusing gabapentin with Keppra. I have labelings all over the place so that even if I'm half awake, I know which medication I gave her, and I'm not giving her twice of one and not enough of the other. So little tips like that are very helpful to go through life at home. Surrounding yourself with a talented team. So we have obviously the doctors who hopefully are talented. The ones on my team, you are. I also have a lot of people who are involved in our community, in our family, or at our workplace that have helped us over the time, and they're talented too. So we had a problem with our suction machine, and we kept losing the ends of it, and that becomes awkward when she's vomiting, and we need to help her. So he came up with a creative solution of something that attaches it, so it's always there. So when I'm doing that at 3 a.m, I can find the tip for the suction or the one for the nose pretty easily. Our special ed teacher, Julie, over the years has learned how to utilize all the 5 senses, be creative, how to engage Nora and keep her centered in our world. She's using smelly stickers. We put headphones on her so that she can hear a little better, so we can concentrate her sense of whatever is left of her sense of hearing. She has a lot of sensory objects and fun songs and books that she's reading for Nora, and it's been wonderful to have her. Happens that she also helped us cut her hair when we got to a point where we couldn't have her sit in a hair salon chair. My spouse found a tubey dad on Etsy that does 3D molded carrier, so we found it very useful to carry our pump. My mom sews, so she's been sewing clothes for Nora. It was important, especially at the beginning when she had so much muscle spasms that we had a hard time putting a shirt on. So she would create the ones that has like a little button on the side that would make it easier for her. My colleagues helped us modify a bike trailer so that we could put her wheelchair in it, a wheelchair seat, so we could actually have a family bike ride, which we didn't have for many years. So I'm very happy that they helped me with, creating that memory. And then we have family that actually help us take our daughters on play dates and activities so that even on the days we're stuck at home, it doesn't mean they miss out on childhood activities. So when I look back at that, what does talent look like? that looks like willing to walk with you and learn with you as to how can we make Nora's life better. It's focusing on bite-sized problem solving. It's those little problems that nag you every day and trying to find a solution for it. It's bringing someone who can do things or know things you don't know yourself, or alternatively, someone who can give you back time so you can go and spend family time with your loved ones instead of having to do those day-to-day less important things. All right. Understanding needs and prioritize. There's a lot of things to do. And I wish I could get to the end of my to-do list. I never do, right? But I've learned over the years to take this approach, which is to think of what's the most important thing or things, and what's the most urgent things. So the one that are urgent and important, I do them first. This is how I structure my day, my week, etc. Things that are not urgent but important, I try to plan them. So we have a little planner and, we plan our activities so we get to them. If it's urgent but not important, I try to find someone who can help me with this and who's willing to help. For example, cleaning. Thank you, Maria. Different Maria. And then less important and not urgent, I just make peace and forget about it. Either forever or until it becomes either urgent or important, and then we do it again. We, for example, for a very long time, did not, we didn't prioritize outing for me and my husband, just for us, just because it wasn't the top of the priority. Until it became important, then we made it happen, right? All right. There's power in community. It takes time to build it. So start small, start with what you have. You have your family and your friends, however big and small and where they are in the world. You likely are already at a hospital, or for the lucky ones at a leukodystrophy center. Eventually, you might be talking to a hospice team or a respite center. Your school will have, special services you're going to be involved in. If you're religious, you have a place of worship, whatever it looks like, and a community that goes with it. You have advocacy group like the ones here, like CureMLD, like ULF, and many others. There are also advocacy group and groups that you would never think of, like we're part of the TUBE family, right? It's not specific to leukodystrophy, but it's our family too. There are a lot of online resources that have helped me over the years find the information. Obviously, social media. I'm friends with moms in Scandinavia, in the Middle East, in Tokyo, who share something similar to our journey, and yet such a different different experience as well. And finally, there's also podcasts and books. Plug in for Maria's book, which I found very useful. And all those logos are the ones that I am associated with and or have used over the years that really helped us. All right. Finally, taking care of yourself, whether it's financial, physical, emotional, spiritual, social. Sometimes you have to decide what you start with. Taking care of myself at the beginning looked like going back to work because it was my respite. Going to work and talking about adult things and not having to be sad about Nora for maybe 8 hours was my lifeline. It stopped being my lifeline, right? And I'm happy I'm not relying on this to take care of myself because it's a lot of brunt work too. For my daughter, it was to be involved socially, having, physical activity. It's something that I delayed for a very long time until my body told me it's time to take care of yourself because you're burning out at this point. And even for Nora, right? How to be close to her emotionally, she has to take care of herself, and we have to help her with that. Very fun things that I do with her is we live in Minnesota. It's cold a lot. So in the winter, we put just nature music so that we can still hear the birds and, water, and it's very soothing, and it's something we share. And arts and craft is another thing we picked up more recently. The kids love doing things like that, and it's a good way of taking care of yourself. All right. So for anyone out there, I just have one main question for you. What are your goals? So you can figure out what you need to do about them. All right? Thank you for my family to have listened already to this presentation a couple times and given me feedback, and for being part of the ride. Maria, Erica, Marley from CureMLD, Missy from the palliative team that hopefully is online with her team, Jody and Ben from the hospice team, Julie, Catherine, and Daniel from the special ed team, and finally Natalie and Rachel, who are our home nurses. If you want to reach out to me, I'm on Instagram. All right? Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you for sharing.
Sorry.
Doing how it works.
Yeah. No, I got it.
Marley is prepared.
Thank you for sharing your story with us. You talked about this transition in the beginning about from having one goal and then switching to that goal becoming Nora being comfortable.
Yeah.
And I was wondering what sort of things were helpful or useful for you to make that transition, or maybe what things would have been useful for providers to do to help you make that transition.
It's an excellent question. The first thing is to give time for the family to mourn. No, that's all right. I would say having the conversation is helpful. What helped us was trying. So we had, thank you. I think we did try to get in touch with the Milan team, see if she could be.
I know I have a cold, I don't care.
The things that were helpful is the fact that we tried. We did call Milan. We did come to the realization that we couldn't cure her. And I think we made peace with that. My husband is great, and he realized we needed this, she was diagnosed in June. We needed the summer off and not seeing doctors and just have family time. We had our parents flew in. They happened to live overseas. We spent a lot of quality time together and, had time to basically grieve. And that really helped. So time, knowing that we tried our best and we didn't leave any stone unturned was very important for us to come to that realization. I think the third thing that really grounded us was Nora was in pain and she was hungry. So we had concrete things we needed to work on that really helped us, like, okay, I know I have this goal and it would be nice, but right now I just want her not to cry and not to be hungry. Right, so as a provider, focusing on how can we help, like, immediately? I know we can't do what you want, but we want her to have bowel movement that are not going to be so painful. We want her to be able to have food because she was losing weight very fast. Those are the things we helped. But it takes time. There's no magic. There's no magic cure. No magic things you can do. It really helped us not to be having so many doctor's appointments a few months after. We had a couples, got her to a stable place, took 2 months off, and then came back full force with the doctors. And by that time we had grieved, and we had decided, okay, we can't do that. What's the best thing we can do, right? And having those goals helped because at least we were trying to achieve something, although it wasn't what we wanted at the beginning. Yeah. Very good question. All right. Any other questions?
Are there any questions online?
All right.
Thank you. That was amazing.
Thank you.
So now for the silly part of the program. I wanted to, that's why I invited Ozma to speak. She is so wise and so beautiful and teaches me about the beauty of our children. And I think the thing that always makes me happy and blessed about going to CHOP, and I'm going to do a little plug for my daughter, there would be no Luca Distry Center without Cal, kind of in a funny, strange, remarkable way. And a lot of you wouldn't be in this room. I wouldn't be in this room. But the beauty of the team at CHOP is that you all are so good about being present and letting us lose our minds during our hour with you guys. And I know Laura and Amy and Adeline are so good about simply holding your hand and letting you purge what you're feeling. So I think you are already doing a great job in understanding there isn't anything you can say that will ever make it better, but the gift of listening and affirming and always saying, no matter what's going to happen, we're going to be right here with you, is remarkable. And you all have chosen to be here, as opposed to Ozma and myself and others here who were forced. We were conscripted into this. It amazes me that anyone would voluntarily be a part of this. So your bravery is noble and extraordinary. So moving on to the update community meeting part of the program, we in the MLD community have reached an incredible historic milestone. We have an FDA-approved therapy that is now also in the EU, the UK. As of yesterday we submitted the RUSP nomination, which, yes, please. I don't know why Mike Gelb left. This is his, but Mike probably had to go to another meeting. Dr. Gelb, Dr. Edang, Dr. Orchard, Dr. Lugwitz, Dr. Schenker, I'm trying to think, Dr. Burton, did the submission. They have been working for over a year. Laura and our colleagues in the EU were racing to publish papers. I think it's hard for people to understand how extraordinary this effort was, because academics, their bread and butter is writing papers and taking credit for it and making sure that they're, the lead author and they get credit for their work. But in a remarkable international collaboration, these doctors put aside their careers, they put aside what was best for them, and they did what was best for our children. And they shared data, and they worked very, very hard to put together this nomination, which is extraordinarily strong. Newborn screening is at a pivotal point right now. It is not an easy thing to do. It's really hard to do. And we had literally some of the smartest people on the planet working tirelessly for a year to get this done as soon as we were allowed to. The minute we got the FDA approval, I will tell you the doctors were putting together the proposal. The amazing Lisa Brackbill was like a general mobilizing the troops, preparing those of you who spoke. I want to tell you, everyone who spoke, in particular Asmahan and just the Rileys, the Raspberries, all of you who spoke made such an impact. I'm going to say something a little provocative, which is hardly surprising, that the Russ process is really messed up and broken. And we were being told, listen, go back to the end of the line. We'll get to you when we get to you, because we have problems to fix and we don't, blah, 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 blah. And it was because of our families and the beautiful, brilliant testimony that you all did. You could see that the ACHDNC, who oversees the Russ nomination process, you could see their hearts melting. And they wanted to be on the right side of history with this. So we wouldn't even have made the submission. I want to tell you, I won't get into all the details. It was not clear we would be able to be permitted to make the submission. So the fact that we have done it ahead of schedule, that we are looking at, I believe, August hearings, which we will be calling many of you back for. Some of you might be flying to beautiful Bethesda, which is a stunning city, and staying at the Bethesda Hilton as we prep for our in-person testimony. So that is extraordinary. Also, I want to give a shout out to our amazing advocates in Norway who have made Norway the first country in the world to screen for MLD. So a round of applause for that, which is a huge achievement as well. We have our friends in the UK working tirelessly to get MLD screening there. So I'm going to have Laura come up and we'll chat about where we are. If you don't know, Dr. Laura Dang is at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. She is one of the leading neurologists in the world who treats and cares for children with MLD. And some of her colleagues from her team are here in the audience as well. Big shout out. And I wanted to have Laura talk about what she's seeing in terms of the change in the community as we move into this bittersweet moment of having an approved therapy that most of our families will not be able to access until newborn screening becomes a reality. So just talking about how we take care of ourselves as a community as things change. So that's easy, right, Laura? You got that.
It's different than I thought it was going to be. We had worked for years to have a treatment, and I had this idea that it would be the mission accomplished sign. And it is, but until we get newborn screening, and not for the next 5 to 10 years, will it feel like I have a different world. We are now living in a space with hope for some, which in many ways is more traumatizing for the families. It is more traumatizing for us as providers. I think it's a hard space where we need to pull together and take this as proof of principle that MLD is treatable, that we have a motivated, engaged family group, but I think we need research and more trials and more investment into caring for ourselves as a community now than ever before. We have a treatable disorder. We have proven what people thought 15, 20 years ago wasn't even feasible. And so I am excited for MLD and the community it will bring about in a decade, but that is not the space we are living in right now. And so it has been, I will name and be very vulnerable and honest, not where I thought I was going to be emotionally, right? Like I thought it was going to be this moment of joy and relief, and it almost has brought so many feelings in our families to the forefront, and I think it has really brought to the forefront the lack of mental health providers and the lack of psychosocial support for our community. I think it's a place in the United States we have very little access and very little support. And so to me, that has just unroofed this huge gap in the American healthcare system.
So I think that we're in this as an advocate, and as an advocate who lost my child to this disease, I think I've come to terms, although actually after talking to Francesco, maybe I'm having a nervous breakdown. I thought I've managing this well. I mean, I believed that my advocacy was part of my therapeutic intervention. But how do we think about asking families to help advocate for people and children when their own children won't benefit? I struggle with that. That's a heavy lift. And I want to say that, I find some healing and support in that, but I don't think everyone needs to or has to or should feel obligated to. But I do want to acknowledge the people who have found healing in advocacy, and I want to thank them for their incredible bravery and courage. I'm looking at you, Asma. But I think that we all need to, as parents, avoid the temptation to lean into the brave parent character, the heroic mom and dad. It's a dangerous myth. It's comforting sometimes to imagine I am superhuman, I can change the world, but at the same time, we are suffering tremendously with our children. And so I think Laura's absolutely right. We need to ask for help. I hope people who are listening today will reach out and say, I want to talk to someone. And we're actually doing 3 sessions today with the amazing Sarah Stoney, who I think is going to begin that conversation about mental health and psychosocial support. But actually, I was talking to Francesca, some of the folks from CHOP today, and I think we're going to do more sessions with more discussions about mental health, the trauma for our children, the trauma for the siblings, the trauma for our marriages and our careers, and all the things that we grieve and lose in this disease. Because, as one MLD parent said to the NHS, this MLD doesn't just destroy a child's life; it destroys the entire family, and we have to, I think, acknowledge that. It's dangerous to pretend we're doing okay when we're not. And I'm really glad, Laura, that you said you're not doing okay, because I've been worried about this moment a lot for us. And I think it's okay to acknowledge that you're not happy about MLD. It's okay to say that you're angry and frustrated. I am, but at the same time, the paradox is that we wouldn't have MLD without the amazing people in this room and the amazing people in our community. So I do hope that we all can find some gift in the possibility of hope, even if it isn't for our child. I think that there are no questions, right? Marley's telling me there's no questions online. I just wish I had a good. I'm trying to find the words for this. We remain committed to getting a cure. We remain committed to newborn screening. But I want people out there to know that CureMLD isn't only concerned with that. That's wonderful and it's important, but we're here for you, and we're here to support families. And so, any other questions or concerns or issues, Dr. Rubin? Let me give you.
I'm Jen. I'm here in Chicago as a healthcare provider. I don't want to center the providers in this, but I want to use the opportunity while the families are here. One of the things I worry about as we roll out newborn screening is knowledge is power, but it's also hard. And you are taking families of newborns and giving them this diagnosis, and with a certain subset of them, we are not going to be able to tell with maybe the certainty we'd like when their disease will start, what type of MLD they'll have. And I wonder, I think we might need the community's help navigating that as well. And I think we've seen that with Krabbe, where I worry a lot about giving information to families that I'm not sure what we do with and what that might look like too.
Okay. I'll take the mic back. That's an amazing question, and actually we have been at CureMLD certainly working on a post-newborn screening, post-RUSP world. So we have the amazing Lisa Brackwell, who works with Leukodystrophy Newborn Screening Action Network. And Lisa is also a Krabbe mom. So one of the things we are doing is taking the learnings from the ALD community, from Krabbe, and we are going to be creating information. One of the things we've been talking about is having videos. Laura's one of the lead consults, so we're going to maybe pre-record. It's not going to be perfect. It's not the same thing as sitting in an office with Laura, but being an affiliated MLD center will mean that she has access to information and she can do a version of that run through with the family. The great thing too is we have a international collaboration, which is I think remarkable. Like I said, these doctors put aside their maybe what was it best for their CVs and focused on what was best for the community. So we have built through it was actually Dr. Grohel's in Germany when they had the first newborn screening hit. The first thing Sam did was get on a Zoom and convene a meeting with the best people in the world, and everyone came to a consensus. Yeah. So I think we have that informal infrastructure in place that will continue. You will not be asked to make these decisions on your own, especially as we know the families will doctor hop and try to find a weak point. So that's already being sponsored through CureMLD, and we'll be working with Lisa to create information and support materials. But I think that the provider, I remain almost as concerned about the providers as I am the patient community, because the providers are in an impossible situation. Yeah, please.
I'm presenting later, but I'm very passionate about this because I was in the situation where I was given the information too late. These babies are going to be born with this disease, whether they are told at birth and the parents have hope and control, or they're going to be told when it's too late and they're told there's absolutely nothing you can do, which leads to a whole other host of mental health things like PTSD. And so to me, I think it's just very important that the providers make sure the parents understand that this gives them options. This gives them something that they can try to do. And so it's never going to be easy for them to receive this news, but they are getting it at the perfect time. And so I understand why, as a provider, you might be nervous. I can't imagine how the neurologist who told us that our daughter had Krabbe felt. But I think that it's really important to just make sure you're empowering the parents, because we had that taken away from us.
Yeah, and I think that we'll be, but there's also, I think, the issue of the kids who are not going to immediately get MLD, and they're going to go into a monitoring phase. We have lessons out of the Europe that's already happened, and I think the teams are it's going to be a design build problem, but I'm really confident because of this remarkable international collaboration that is so beyond generous, that we will make the best decisions with these families, and we will find the line. But I think that I can assure you, because so much work has already been done in the EU, that we've had several cases identified there, and so we're learning really, really quickly, and we will share that through collaboration. And you should just get on a Zoom call us, and we'll happily get you connected to the people you need to be connected to. Any other questions? Yeah, I think we're just in a remarkable place, and I'm really grateful for everything people have done. I'm also going to invite folks who are listening and folks in the room to please submit ideas for our next conference. The way that these sessions work is that they are collaborations sponsored by CureMLD. So we have a block of time every year to program stuff that is, I think, important and interesting. And as we enter this new space, as beautiful and brilliant as Dr. Dang is, I'm sure other people might might want to talk, and I'm actually very cognizant of the fact that I'm making Laura do so much work right now. So I think getting other voices, other perspectives, we have an amazing teams all over the country in this room today. And I also just want to give a little bit of a shout out to our friends at Orchard who are here and who have been supporting our meeting, supporting this work. And it is no accident that Bobby Gaspar was named one of Time's most influential biotech leaders. And while Bobby Gaspar was singled out, it was really the incredible team at Orchard who they are a scrappy little group. And when they were down and most people were counting them out, and they came back roaring and made medical history this year, which is no small feat. And I think we did it in a way that was innovative and bold, but didn't break the system and didn't do tremendous harm to the system in terms of the way the FDA understands gene therapy. So I'm really proud to work with them, and I'm really grateful for their continued support. We are now entering, if you're interested, Lisa Brackbill, our general, will be leading the national campaign for newborn screening. And Lisa, can you just very quickly, as we wrap up, sort of talk about the next steps for state-by-state lobbying, and how people can get in touch with you? Okay. So we'll save that for. So I won't steal her thunder. Sorry about that. So stay tuned to hear how you can get involved in newborn screening. I can speak from experience. I did the submission for Pennsylvania with Lisa. States want families from the state to do the submissions. It was a beautiful, amazing day to be a part of the Pennsylvania submission. So we are in Illinois, in Pennsylvania, and Lisa will give you updates on what you can get involved in doing. But we are also gearing up for the big RUSP hearing, and we'll be reaching out to a lot of you. So thank you.
May I jump in for a
Please.
second? Jen, perhaps for you or for any other colleagues that might be listening, I found 2 formal training programs to be really helpful for myself as a provider. One which is called the PRISM program, and it was developed by palliative care specialists originally at University of Washington, in Seattle, and is now associated with Harvard. And it's to teach resiliency to families. So Asma, your talk resonated very much so, and it's honestly a formalized teaching where you talk about positive reframing and deep breathing and meditation, and it is a bridge to therapy. Does that make sense? It doesn't substitute for it, but it gives the families those basic skills so that they can find a provider over the coming weeks to months. So I really enjoyed the PRISM training program. And then the other thing is many institutions around the country participate in something called Vital Talk, and they do have, so I'm a Vital Talk facilitator for SHOP, and they do have a additional training on how to break ambiguous news, because I think it's a completely different skill set than breaking traditional bad news, because many times that ambiguity is harder to share, and it makes us uncomfortable in providers because we like definitive answers and definitive plans. And so there are ways that maybe we can train as a network to make sure all of our providers that are talking with our families have the skills to give it appropriately and as compassionately as possible.
And I actually, the Calliope Joy Foundation gave a $25,000 gift to the Vital Talk program at CHOP, which was in honor of Pat, because he loved a good Vital Talk. He was the king of a Vital Talk. But more importantly, I think we're in a situation, so Screen Plus, the NIH-funded project out of New York. I am very pleased to be one of their interviewers. So we're doing qualitative interviews with newborn screening families about this, to learn about that ambiguous space and living with uncertainty. So big plug for the team in New York. We are going to be recruiting families, newborn screening families, to share their experiences for this qualitative project. So if you have families that you can send to us, I will send out the link. It's a $50 stipend, but more importantly, to understand this very question. And the preliminary data and interviews have been really fascinating to see how families process this information, and from the magical thinking to very focused, and certainly learning how people answering this question of how much information should we give them, how should we talk about it, and how do they come to live with the, this is a burden. This is not a gift. I mean, I think that's the other thing to really acknowledge, that while all of us imagine that newborn screening is this magical solution, and we all have this other life we can think of ourselves, the reality of newborn screening is far more fraught. We are very aware of that. We are very aware of that. And we want to support the families on their different journey.
Dr. Trainee is also doing a long-term study about newborn screening results out of Children's National.
Okay.
So that'll be coming out soon.
Yeah. So, thank you. Any other questions? So I guess we're going to convene. Thank you for everyone for coming. This has been amazing. Please come and share ideas for next year. We'd like to have more talks, and less Maria, definitely less Maria. That's always in the evaluations. You're wonderful.